The Fed say that a Metro Atlanta real estate CEO ran $300 million Ponzi scheme and bought a $3 million yacht with investor funds. I couldn't even believe this when I read it. I mean, I don't really understand why people wouldn't have thought that this was a Ponzi scheme, because he advertised 10% returns. Now listen to this. Quarterly. That means the return would be between 40 and 50% annually, which I don't see there's any way that could possibly happen. So the CEO of a Metro Atlanta real estate firm is accused of running a $300 million Ponzi scheme, impacting more than 2,000 investors, funding a lavish lifestyle that included the purchase of a $3 million yacht. The Securities and Exchange Commission announced it had obtained a preliminary injunction and asset freeze against Drive Planning's LLC's founder and CEO, Russell Todd Burkhalter. The firm was based at the Avalon in Alpharetta. The SEC filed a complaint in the U.S. District Court in Atlanta alleging that from 2020 to June of this year, Burkhalter raised more than $300 million for purported real estate investments, telling investors that their money would be used to fund land development projects. And he stole those funds to live a life of luxury, including buying a $3.1 million yacht and spending $4.6 million on chartering private jets and luxury services, and $2 million on a luxury condo. According to the SEC, the scheme involved promises of investment returns of 10% interest every 3 months. Burkhalter and Drive Planning is accused of encouraging investors to, this makes me sick when I read this, tap their savings, retirement accounts, and even open lines of credit. My guess is there could very well be somebody listening today who suffered due to Burkhalter's alleged crimes. He hasn't been convicted, so I'll make sure that that is clear. And that just, tears me up. Somebody who doesn't have much savings and they're convinced to put $25,000 or half of their savings in, then it's gone. It's disgusting. The complaint alleges advertising brochures for the investment scheme required $20,000 minimum investment for investors to participate. Burkhalter gained the trust of everyday people and encouraged them to invest in his scheme by promising exorbitant returns. But as our complaint alleges, the defendant's business was nothing more than a classic Ponzi scheme, using new investor money to pay the returns to existing investors, with Burkhalter stealing millions to fund that lavish lifestyle. Investors, according to the SEC Regional Office Director, investors should be vigilant and encouraged when they counter aggressive sales tactics, who make over-the-top sales pitches and promise high rates of guaranteed returns, to know that it's probably a scam. Burkhalter is charged with violating anti-fraud provisions of the federal securities law. The complaint says he pledged on June 10th of this year to cease accepting new investments as well as paying commissions or supposed return to investors, but indeed continued to pay commissions to Drive Planning agents as late as June the 21st. Burkhalter remains a signatory on the bank accounts containing millions of dollars of investor funds. Hopefully that'll go back to the investors. And has recently entered into a divorce settlement pursuant to which he may transfer to his spouse property bought with investor funds. The complaint is arguing for the asset freeze. Makes sense to me. The complaint lays out how Burkhalter began offering bridge loan opportunities promising 10% return in 3 months. Those are called real estate acceleration loans, or REAL, R-E-A-L investments. Burkhalter and the agents he recruited to sell REAL investments represented to prospective investors that Drive Planning would pool their money and loan it out to property developers and enter into a joint venture with these property developers and thereby generate the profit necessary to meet its obligations. But interest from the property developers in doing business with Drive Planning proved insufficient, and Drive Planning had no other profit-generating enterprises that were sufficient to meet the obligations to real investors, each of whom expected a 10% return every 90 days. I guess some small part of me hopes that this is not true, but the majority of me, unfortunately, bets that it is true. And anybody who is listening who've suffered under this, my heart goes out to you. 100% my heart goes out to you.